What's going on, guys? It's Sean. I am back again with part 2 of my Iron Man build. Now in this video we are going to be focusing on the abdominal, rib, and the codpiece. I'm going to start off by taking my patterns which I printed out, and I'm going to draw out the outer pattern, and then I'm going to take my paper template and then slice that into smaller pieces, in sectional pieces actually. I flipped the pattern over so that way I can draw the lines for my undercuts. Now that I have my undercut line drawn out, I'm going to go back and cut out more of my paper pattern, and then I'm going to transfer these patterns over to my foam. And if you're wondering, I am using 6mm EVA foam. And the reason why I chose to go with 6mm EVA foam for the abdominal piece is because it's a little more flexible. It's not as thick, but it will hold its shape pretty well. Now that I got all my patterns cut out, I am tracing out all my lines. I'm flipping these patterns over so that way I can do the other side too, since I already cut one side over for the undercuts. And then I am going to go back and cut my patterns up some more for the details. Right here I am cutting out some V-groove undercuts, which I'm gonna eventually go back and apply some contact cement and glue those pieces together. And the reason why I like doing these undercuts is minimize the amount of patterns that I have to cut out, and it gives me a cleaner cut. Here are the patterns for my rib guard. I'm going to trace the pattern out on my EVA foam, and then I'm going to trace the other side, but instead of flipping the pattern, I'm going to flip the material. Now I'm going to cut my patterns into smaller pieces so that way I can transfer these patterns over. Now instead of cutting them into several little pieces, I'm going to take my wood burner and I'm going to burn in these lines. Makes it a whole lot easier than cutting them all into these little small pieces and then gluing them back together. I'm going to carefully burning these lines. Want to make sure they're deep enough so you can see the details, but I don't want to burn it too long and then burn completely through the foam, because that would be catastrophic, and we don't want that. And I'm also going to fill in these little details. Then I'm going to go back and do the exact same thing with the rib guard, which goes around the body. And once my contact cement is dried to a tack, I'm going to go ahead and apply them together, which will leave me this really cool looking shape. Yeah, I dig it. It's got really clean seam line. And then I'm going to take the rib guards and I'm going to glue it onto the abdominal pieces. Now before I did this, I went and measured it around my body to make sure it all fit. Now I'm going to apply some contact cements to the end of the rib guard, which I'm going to apply some Velcro. This will make it easier for me to put this thing on and off. I'm using some Velcro with adhesive back end because those work really well. And you want to get the good kind, you don't want to get the bad kind. The bad kind will fall apart. Now the good kind you can pick up at Walmart. That's why I got mine. So far so groovy, and this is what it's looking like with the chest piece, and everything look like it kind of lines up, and I'm digging it. So let's move along to the cod piece. Now here are the patterns all drawn out on some 8mm EVA foam, some black ones. And if you're wondering why I'm using black, it's because I ran out of white. But it doesn't really matter because I'm going to paint it, because you don't see a white Iron Man or a black Iron Man. You see red and gold, sometimes silver. Alright, let's take another look at all these pieces that I've cut out for the cod pieces. Some pieces were cut with an inward angle, some pieces were cut with an outward angle, and some pieces have V-groove undercuts, just like this. And this is the G-string part of the cod piece. And you're probably thinking, well, that's weird. Iron Man doesn't wear G-string. Well, my Iron Man does, and I think that's sexy. And now that I have all my pieces cut out, I'm going to go through and apply contact cement on all my pieces. And you want to make sure you hit the undercuts, because those need some attention too. Now that all my glue is dry to a tack, it's time to put everything together. I'm going to start off by making sure all my undercuts are pressed together, and you should have something that looks like this. This is actually the hip part, which I'm going to join to the other hip part. Yeah, I don't really know the correct terminology for all these pieces, so kind of work with me here, okay? I am carefully aligning all my pieces. And what I like to do is I like to start off with one edge, get it started, and then get the other corner hooked in. That way I don't get the pieces flying all over the places whenever I'm trying to glue it down nice and steadily and cleanly like this one. Now that I got these two big pieces together, time to throw on my hash marks so that way I know where to put the waistline thingies, something like that. Anyways, let's just glue that together. I did cut this piece in an outward angle, that way when I glue it onto this straight cut piece, it's going to bevel upward or outward, but you kind of get the picture. Now that I'm pretty much done with one side of my iron thongs or iron shorts or whatever you want to call it, it's time to repeat the process over again, but mirrored this time. I can't say reverse order because we're not trying to go backwards. We are trying to make everything mirrored. You can kind of get a better view of how I am applying these two pieces together from this angle. And again, what I like to do is I like to start off with one end, get it started, and then get the other corner attached. That way the foam pieces don't fly around. I don't accidentally glue something where it wasn't meant to be glued. But so far, this is what it should look like. And now it's time to put that waist thingy on there. And it should go on just like that. And again, I am starting off with one corner, applying my pieces, getting it started, and then work my way to the other corner just like that. Now I am pretty much done with the other side of the iron shorts. Time to merge these two pieces together by the rear end just like that. I'm using the surface of my table to make sure everything is nice and smooth, like a iron butt. Get it? Not like a baby's butt, but an iron butt. Never mind. Now it's time to join the two pieces together at the front. I got my center pieces cut in an inward angle. That way when I glue it together, they'll have this beveled look to it. And now it's time to add this mustache looking thingy, which I also cut in an inward angle cut. That way when I glue it together, it will take its form just the way I like it, just like that. And so far so groovy, and everything is starting to look legit. Now it's time to put my G-string together and merge the butt end to the crotch end, which I'm going to glue together just like this. I'm using the surface of my table to make sure everything is nice and smooth. Now the front end of the G-string, I did cut it in an outward angle. That way when I glue it on, it's gonna bevel inward just like that. And since I'm not using hash marks, I did kind of glue it off spot, but luckily we're working with EVA foam and it's pretty forgiving because you can stretch and pull some of these areas to make them fit. And once you get it all together, it should look something like this. Now it's time to just glue the back piece together. And so far so groovy, and it is starting to look pretty legit. Now I went and cut me a strip of foam that was about 3/4 of an inch wide, and I'm going to glue it onto the edge of the front of the codpiece just like this. I'm pretty much winging it right now, but at the end it should all come out looking pretty clean. I'm going to carefully align everything up, making sure that there's not that much sanding left to be done at the end. And then I'm going to trim off the excess with my high-tech scissors. Now I am going to glue on some of these tabs right here so that way I can attach the abdominal piece to the codpiece, but it's only temporary. I'm going to end up taking it apart because with the abdominal I'm going to attach some Velcro on the inside, which is going to attach to the undergarment. I just went ahead and did this so that way you can see what the final product will look like, and so far it's looking super clean, and I am digging it. Now it's time to do the hip disc, which I am cutting in an inward angle cut. I'm going to take my little circle paper pattern and I'm going to cut the inner circle out, and then I'm going to place that on top of there so I can trace the other circle, the inner circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in an inward angle cut as well, and I'm going to take that piece I just cut out and glue it onto the top just like that, and it's going to give me my side disc. Easy peasy, right? Quick and simple, just the way I like it. Then I want to take this hip disc and I'm going to glue it onto the iron thong. And if you're wondering why is it white now, well, this was my first attempt and it was too big, so I had to go back and redo it, but I didn't have enough white foam, so I ended up doing it in black foam. So yeah, that's my excuse right there. Well, alrighty guys, that's it for this video. I hope you guys learned something. Hit that like button if you got something out of this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already subscribed, and follow me on all my social network, and I'll see you guys in the next video.